Today we have a returning guest, someone that you guys all have enjoyed. He is our go-to guy for apps and technology on the iPhone. Joel Salatin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you are.
I'm
Thanks.
doing well too. I'm just joking. He's our go-to guy for farming and understanding the land, getting back to the local roots of our food system. Joel, I wanted to frame this discussion here. We're headed towards your Rogue Food Conference at your farm, Polyface Farm. It's coming up in just what, about a week, right? We got a week,
Yeah,
and
it's gonna be on Saturday this week, the May the 13th.
that's right. So next week we'll be doing this. Will be this week as when we publish it. But I wanted to ask you. I think this 21st century is going to be defined by uh, two things. It's going to be a battle between the banks and the bacteria, and what that means is the banks, the oligarchic system that we have ourselves under the thumb of, and the soil. I saw that, and I think that that seems to be the juxtaposition because everywhere I look, for example, in Florida, we're being inundated with everybody wanting to come to Florida and all this. They're building subdivisions everywhere. Everybody in those subdivisions, the new homes they're building, they're pushing up citrus groves that had poor soil that couldn't produce food the way it used to when the soil was rich. And they're replacing it with homes with spacing where my hand to elbow is the space between the windows in these single family homes between the yards, so there's no place to grow anything in those homes in terms of your own garden, but you do have a great opportunity to be in debt to banks for the rest of your life. And I see that as a battle between the soil and the banks. Are we going to heal the soil and get our communities local again, or are we going to continue to be centrally planned with the Federal Reserve System? How does that presentation fit your worldview, where you're seeing things from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm very similar. Very similar. I think it goes beyond soil to just a lot of other things too. Just economy and social function or dysfunction, freedoms for sure. But yeah, COVID, that black swan of COVID, sure gave us a shock and an awareness of the fragility of a centralized long distance food system. And throughout history, no society, in fact, no even communities, um, could not survive under duress when they couldn't feed themselves. And you don't have to grow everything proximate, but the farther you get away from your food supply, the more vulnerable you are in any kind of disturbance. And um, so I just flew in this afternoon from Georgia, doing a farm consult down there. And as I was coming into the airport at Charlottesville, I was looking at the land below me there in Albemarle County, Virginia, Charlottesville, where UVA and all that is. And I was struck by the amount of land that is not being utilized. So you have the thing that you described, which is shoulder to shoulder housing with no space for for gardens, and then you have the other extreme, which is large lots that are just mowed lawn. And right now the U.S. has 36 million acres of lawn, 35 million acres of lawn, and that's enough to feed half the population. So we have a lot of opportunity here in a local system to actually create resilience in our food system where it's proximate to us. But unfortunately, we don't regard that as valuable anymore. But I guarantee you mentioned banks versus soil. I can guarantee you, the Chinese have a saying that says lots of money, many problems. No money, one. I'm sorry. Lots of food, many problems. No food, one problem. That's it. So if we do go into this, a dysfunctional time with centralized food and a difficulty of access to food, we're certainly not going to be able to eat dollar bills. We're going to want some lettuce and tomatoes and some pork chops.
Yeah, we're going to want things that are nutritionally rich and having the vitamins and minerals we need to raise healthy families that are not sick chronically, where children are getting diabetes at the age of 2 or 3 years old. I mean, we just can't, that's not sustainable as a civilization. But the problem, Joel, is that, I think a lot of folks are saying, well, how can we really get to local farming? A lot of folks just don't want to put in the kind of work required to farm. They want to, they just don't have it in them to be getting out there and moving around animals. And, it's just so alien to them. It's as if you're trying to teach them Chinese or something totally alien. I mean, is this something that's a little bit idealistic? Is it always going to have a kind of glass ceiling of a certain kind of niche homesteader, enthusiast that's going to be attracted to your model? Or do you really think that, lots and lots and lots of Americans who are currently working Zoom jobs or whatever, we're doing Zoom right now, but, to do a Zoom based job, could they really realistically, I mean, people can say, oh yeah, you'll do anything when you're hungry, but it takes a lot of skill and experience, I imagine, to be successful in farming as you have been.
Yeah, well, it does, but it is, but by the same token, it's like any skill. You start and you develop mastery. I mean, people don't talk well first. The people don't read well first. You don't drive well first, and so any new thing. I think people who are coming to this what I call a homestead tsunami are realizing the vulnerability. There's this kind of sense among a lot of people, at least thinking people, that if the wheels fall off, I don't want to be in the middle of a city. I want to be somewhere where I can have a garden. I can, grow some things, have some firewood, build a hut, drink some spring water, that sort of thing. And so that's what's, driving this, I call them agrarian bunkers. There's a lot of that going on. And the fact is there's a tremendous amount of urban food production opportunity and possibility. And I mean, you go to Italy, and you don't have yards in Italy. They've got tomatoes trellised up against the house. They've got espaliered apple trees. I mean, we could have solariums on the side of houses. I mean, it's like we're just drunken sailors, and we're not even thinking about the kind of vulnerabilities that we're bringing to ourselves. And so while yes, it is a skill, it is a learnable skill. And it's kind of like somebody said, when's the time to plant an apple tree? Well, it was, yesterday. And so that's kind of where we are on this front. And don't underestimate the power of a lot of little speedboats. When you have rocky shoals to navigate, you don't want to be in a big aircraft carrier like Tyson or Cargill. You want to be in a little speedboat, like, the farmers that are supporting the farmers market and things like that. Your more localized folks. Those are the folks that can actually navigate the shoals of dysfunction. And so the atomization of the centralized system is you can also call it the democratization of it, but essentially you have the atomization of big is actually the way to navigate the dysfunctional shoals of the future.
When you engage with folks who are in the farming world like you are you seeing a change in the tide? Is a tide turning towards your model at a level you've never seen before as it pertains to the industry? Are folks in the big ag world starting to finally take a look at your model and say, maybe we could try something like that? Or is it still kind of a branding thing only? Let me see how I can brand it like that, but it's not really going to be regenerative and,
Yeah, it's certainly a fair question, David. And from my perspective, and certainly, people could disagree with me on this, but what I see in the industry is I see a doubling down on the mechanical view of food. I see an absolute doubling down in the industry of everything that people like me believe is heinous and not only anti-ecological, it's anti-health and anti-nutritional. And so I don't see anybody saying, maybe we shouldn't put monosodium glutamate in meat. Maybe we shouldn't. When is somebody at the Centers for Disease Control going to step up to the microphone and say, "Hey, America, if you want to help your immune system, quit drinking anything with high fructose corn syrup in it." But nobody says that. And instead, Coke and Pepsi and everybody else tries to, they try to brand themselves as some sort of, greeny weenie by, making thinner plastic bottles and caps that are half as many screws on it. So, I don't see a real change. In fact, I'm going to make one more point from the previous question, that right now, when you say, can people actually do this? Right now, the average American male between 25 and 35 years old spends 20 hours a week playing video games. I want you to think about that a minute. The average male between 25 and 35. So this is the most physically virile part of a male's life, between 25 and 35, spending 20 hours a week playing video games. How much food do you think could be produced in those 20 hours a week? And so this is not a matter of not knowing, not having resources. It's just a matter of prioritization of time, and seeing that this is actually valuable to do. And so, the little demon on my shoulder says, yeah, I hope things do break down and the wheels fall off. And then all these folks that think they can just live in their basement playing, Game of Thrones and everything will be fine. They might have to go out and learn how to plant a tomato and milk a cow. That probably would be good for our culture.
Yeah, our culture is in a state where you see all these videos of people not able to control their emotions. Their emotions are out of control. They have low control over their emotions, attacking, punching Starbucks people if they get their order wrong, mobbing each other, hitting each other, devolving into a lot of ugly stuff, especially in cities where, the regime's ideology of DC is strongest in its kind of inculcation in the hearts and minds. Do you think that your farming experience and the things that people experience when they learn to take land and make it productive and fertile and valuable for food production, does that have a way of helping you control your emotions?
Oh my, what a wonderful question, and thank you for asking it. Yes, absolutely, I do. And in fact, I've just finished a manuscript of a new book that should be out in early September. It's the title is Homestead Tsunami: Good for Country, Critters, and Kids. And one of the chapters is about actual emotional health that comes when you interact viscerally with life and death. And one of the problems in our, and look, I'm not opposed to cities. I don't think cities are evil, but I do think that cities tend to accentuate hubris, and because think about it, in a city, everything that you're surrounded with is human. You got roads, traffic, cars, street lights, and it's all human centric. Whereas in a place where you're interacting, and I mean, this could be a community garden in a city, all right, but when you're putting your hands in the soil and you're actually viscerally participating in life, in biology and life and seasons and rain and drought and wind and heat and cold, when you're actually viscerally participating in that, nature doesn't give you a new tomato plant if powdery wilt kills your tomato plant, and you realize, wow, this is serious. This is for all the marbles here, and it's not just a virtual game that I can if I crash my car or mess up, the game gives me a new icon in 2 seconds, and I go on and play. And so there is a value there, and you can't hit a tomato plant. You can't hit a chicken and expect her to thrive for you. And one of the things about animals and plants is they're always happy to see you. People ask me, what energizes you, or what makes you joyful? And one of the things is I get up every day and I get to make a lot of animals happy, and they're always glad to see me. They're not in a bad mood. And you learn then that life is a matter of gentleness and meekness and what awesome toward that there's something bigger than me out here. I'm not the center of the universe. There's something way bigger than me, and that acts toward humility rather than hubris. So I think your question is poignant, it's prescient, it's right on, and I do believe absolutely. When Richard Louv wrote Nature Deficit Disorder and actually coined that phrase, nature deficit disorder, I think he was absolutely right on. And he's got study after study after study that shows that visceral participation in our ecological umbilical does facilitate us toward our more positive human characteristics.
So the Bible says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything give thanks. Yeah. Do you wake up in your business and feel anxious when your feet hit the floor, thinking about all the things that have to be done right?
No, not at all. In fact, I would say, when the store shelves went empty there in spring of 2020 during the lockdowns and the COVID fiasco, and there was no food in the grocery stores, we weren't anxious at all because we had, hundreds of quarts of food in the basement that we've canned from our garden. We had, freezers full of meat. We had relationships with, a dairy farmer up the road. We get our milk and another one that we get our cheese from. So we have all this network of relationships and provenance, and we didn't matter a lick. And when Putin invaded Ukraine and fertilizer went up 400% and farmers were saying, "Oh no, what are we going to do about that?" And eggs went through the roof. We didn't worry because, we get our grains from local farmers, GMO free, that's genetically modified organism free. We know these farmers, they live right here, and we're not getting it from Ukraine. It doesn't have to go through Istanbul. It doesn't have to, have the blessing of Putin on it. And so what happened was, we realized very poignantly at that time that that the decentralized approach, the democratized decentralized approach, which is also the localized approach, actually is much more resilient than the supposed efficient but very fragile and dependent centralized system.
Do you think is that similar to what Jesus said when he said, "My power is made perfect in weakness," in the sense that in that smallness, there is great power. In accepting limits to your ambition, you actually are following closer to the path of the Christian model for the world.
Yeah, actually, in some ways, we feel like Cinderella here, that, we've been kind of marginalized for a long time, laughed at for, oh, you're not at a scale that, contracts Wall Street and then da. And then all of a sudden we wake up one morning and we're suddenly riding a wave and everybody wants to know, well, how did you do this? And how do you grow food without chemical fertilizer? How do you have animals without, injections, vaccines and chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. And so it's a very exciting time to now kind of be invited to the ball. And I've never seen this in my lifetime. So I'm kind of excited for where we are. It will be very disturbing and disrupting, and a lot of people will probably, have some struggles, but that's that struggle is what makes us look at new, creative, innovative options and actually consider them as authentic options and not just, distractions.
Well, Joel Salatin, I really appreciate your time, and I want folks to continue to follow your work and understand what it means to embrace this local farming vision that you have been pushing and exploring for the whole world to catch on to. I thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, David. It's been a delight to be with you. Thank you.
Very good. Take care.